Greetings.
Hello.
Hello,
Hello.
hello. Good evening.
Hello.
Good afternoon. Good morning. Good afternoon. Good evening. Wherever you are, whenever you are, in whichever of the scary and wonderful realms of samsaric existence you are dwelling. You are welcome to my channel and welcome to the next episode of the special episode, special Halloween edition of the Shaku Brothers. Hello, welcome, guys.
All right.
Hello.
Great to be
Or
Welcome,
here.
could I
brothers.
say, could I hello?
Yes. Good evening.
Uh,
It's Igor, not Igor. Sorry. So hopefully some people will get that reference out there.
I
Anyway.
think I understand where that reference
Yeah.
comes from.
Anyways. So yeah, I thought we'd do a sort of spooky Buddhist Halloween episode of the Shaku Brothers, featuring all the various scary realms of samsaric existence, relating it to our own, of course, and relating, it to the ultimately to the Jodo Shinshu teachings, and all of that. But so first, shall we read the rules of Shaku Brothers? I
Yes.
shall share my screen so that we can all see the rules and be very clear. I'm sure people have heard them before, but here we go. One sec. Can you see those okay?
Yes. Yeah.
All clear? Yes, nice. All right. So the rules of Shaku Brothers. 1. Only talk about authentic Jodo Shinshu and Buddhism. 2. Only talk about authentic Jodo Shinshu and Buddhism. 3. If someone asks questions, expresses doubts, or has barriers, the dialogue continues. 4. Anyone can engage in authentic, sincere, humane, civil discussion. 5. As many texts and readings as possible, please. 6. No scholarly debates, no listening over hedge. 7. Discussions will go on for as long as they have to. And the 8th and final rule of Shaku Brothers: if this is your first time on Shaku Brothers, you have to pick the topic. Can't wait till we have someone new again to so they have to
yeah,
pick the
that would be
topic.
great.
So yeah, shall we do some Nembutsu before we begin the discussion and
Yes.
start talking about our images and all our favorite Buddhist cosmology creatures? And yeah, you want to lead us out, Kyokan?
Sure, I don't have my ninju with me today,
Okay.
but okay. Gasho. Namo Amida Butsu.
Butsu.
Namo
Namo
Amida
Amida
Butsu.
Butsu.
Namo
Namo
Amida
Amida
Butsu.
Butsu. Namo
Namanda, Namanda,
Namanda
Namanda,
Namanda Butsu.
Namanda.
Namanda Butsu.
All right.
Yeah. So shall we start by talking about our images we chose for the occasion?
Yes.
Who would like to begin?
I'm really interested in the Japanese
Go
one, but
ahead.
Go for it. Yeah, Kyokan, please
Okay.
go.
Um, well, since as both of you know, I have been living in Japan for a while. I chose a Japanese piece of art. Let me see if I can get myself so I'm small and everyone can see. Okay.
We get
So if you notice, there's this big red guy sitting at a desk, like a bureaucrat of sorts. And this is from one of the Hell Scrolls. They're called very common theme in especially I think Kamakura and medieval Japanese art, depicting the terrors of the Buddhist hells. And some people, maybe coming from a Christian or a Abrahamic religious background, might not be aware that in Buddhism, not only is there hell, um, there are many hells. There's a lot of hells, um, and there's ones that you stay in for different periods of time. So the bottommost hell, called the Avicii hell, the hell that's practically inescapable, is I forget how many kalpos you stay. Someone who gets to that hell stays there, but that the things that lead one to be reborn, so to speak, in that hell would be the gravest of karmic offenses or evils. And we'll talk about all that from Shinron's perspective, I think, in this episode at some point. So anyway, so this art is of Inma. He's called. He's the king of the dead, or the king of the underworld, and he looks pretty fearsome. And that's because he is fearsome. So when according to the texts, people who die appear before Inma, and then their deeds are judged according to whether they are good or bad, and then their next destination in the afterlife is announced to them, and then they go on to one of the different destinations. So sometimes he's called the king of hell, and so on. But in Japanese culture, of course, it's a Buddhist concept from Buddhist scripture. But in Japanese culture, Inma is a very well-known, popular figure.
Is that Yama? Did you say, is that Yama? Is that Yama that would it be referred to as Yama
correct.
in other perhaps other schools of
Right.
I thought so.
Inma, sorry, is the Japanese. It's
yeah.
As you say, Yama, right?
Yama, yeah.
In the Sanskrit, I think.
In the Sanskrit or Pali or Sanskrit probably, yeah.
Same guy.
Same guy. Yeah.
Same guy. And it is in the larger sutra.
And interesting,
the
Inma or Yama lives in, but part of his life is as the kind of sort of judge, as it were, or whatever you want to say. Or what's the word? What do they say in the third John Wick movie? The arbiter. He's the arbiter. Yeah, the arbiter. Yeah, exactly. The arbiter. He's like kind of the arbiter. But he lives there for part of his existence, and then he also lives in one of the heavens, doesn't he?
Oh, okay.
Well, at least the Yama, at least the Yama, well, yeah, the Yama, the Yama, narrative. We'll call it Yama narrative. I think if I'm recalling that correctly. So, yeah.
Yes.
So very.
And he does appear. He is mentioned in the larger sutra, in the second half of the larger sutra. It mentions the people who die appearing before the king of the dead, which is Yama. So,
do you think
that's the
good? Yeah,
that is the arch that I chose.
Do you think that, considering that Buddhism is 2,500 years old, that's where a lot of the ideas in the more monotheistic religion to get the idea of this judge of the dead at the end, but maybe that somehow crossed over from
it could be
shared. I think Yama, is shared in other dharmic, the broader term of dharmic religions. I think Yama, if I'm remembering it correctly, I think is shared in other, like Hindu.
Oh yes,
Jain, kind of.
Well, what's interesting too is that ancient Persian religion, Zoroastrianism, also had concepts that later influenced Judaism about sort of judgments and this kind of thing. So it might all, since it is originally an Indian idea, the idea of Yama, I think it's possible it's maybe a common Indo-European theme, perhaps. I'm sure someone who knows what they're talking about, though, would tell us.
Excellent. All right. Do you well since we've started with the Hell realm, why don't we go up next to the Preta realm? Yoshin, do you want to talk about your background?
Well,
How
this
much was that?
background is one of the depictions for the Hungry Ghost realm, and essentially speaking, from what I understand of that particular realm, the idea is that because they were so greedy in life, the consequence or the karmic consequence of this is not being able to swallow properly, or not being able to sort of like consume things which they were feasting on during life, if you see what I'm getting at. So it's interesting because these realms, they seem to be, I mean, as I understand it anyway, the hell realms and all the other realms are not, they are created by karma. They're not. Do you see what I mean? I guess that they exist. So if you are a greedy person, an angry person, then your karma draws you to this, almost like something you created yourself. If you see what I'm getting at. So this realm anyway, it depicts the consequences, or the hellish consequences of one of the three poisons: anger, greed, and ignorance. Of literally not being able to get what you actually
Want.
need or want, or at least never enough of
So
it.
and they're sort of like the zombies,
Yes.
roughly the ghosts and the zombies of Buddhism, more or less, because they do
Well,
actually eat each other, don't they? They're flesh. They're kind of in their realm. They're kind of flesh eating, kind of. They'll eat anything basically that they can get their hands on, if they can get their hands on it or the mouth on it, and
yes.
it doesn't turn to ash or fire or whatever before they actually can consume it, including each other. Yeah, isn't that part of that?
As far as I understand it, I mean, I'm not as well. It would seem to me that each one of the realms is sort of like they depict the worst of the three poisons, So, so whatever that like the ultimate extreme, of
Yeah.
if you end up in one of these realms, well, this is because that particular karma was dominant, you know, for your lives, or
It,
many lives, or however that.
it's
Yeah.
also it's kind of they're the addict, they're the ultimate
Yes.
addicts,
Yeah.
of the Buddhist realms. They're kind of the addicts, you know what I mean? If you think of it, if you think of like, the world, I kind of tend to see the worlds, all the worlds exist in all the others, I kind of tend to kind of understand it from that kind of Buddhist view. And where you can see people, in the human realm that live like, a ghost of themselves, the ghosts of their,
Yes.
because of their addictions, because of their ghosts of their former selves, or you know because their addiction has just driven them into this extreme, you know, horrible lifestyle, and, living, just survivalist kind of living to get their fix there, or what have you, anyway. Yeah.
Absolutely. But what's interesting about these guys is the thin throat and the huge stomach they're normally
Yeah.
predicted to have. So how are they getting the huge stomach when they can't? It's really interesting. That sort of like, in one image you've got both the greed itself, and in terms of the big stomach, and the inability, because of being in that realm, or being able to fulfill that greed. Do you see what I'm guessing? I don't know how accurate that particular my description of all this is, but it just seems like that image is quite interesting. There's also the fact that many of these things you see in these realms, you can start to see the beginning of it in certain health conditions as well. Which come up in people's lives. It's like these some health conditions are almost like a mirror, or like an image of these particular realms in this realm.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. 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 Definitely. Like, well, it's similar with the hell beings too. You can see that in people in the human realm. You can see people who, um, their life is hellish. They're in such
Yeah,
oppression or
absolutely. Yeah.
abuse and they're just so in that they can't really even, think about changing it or what to do, or they're so kind of oppressed by anger, so seething with anger that they can't really make any choices any other than to act on their anger or to act, do you know what I mean? Or just it just the anger just consumes them, and they just can't really live
Yeah,
any life other than that, basically, than that kind of hellish, existence kind of.
absolutely. Certainly see plenty of that. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Anyway.
yeah.
Okay. Anything else we want to say about the Preta realm? It's one of the ones I relate to. I'll say that just from my struggles I'd say relating to food related addictive behavior, that I've had struggles with for many years, but I'd say through various means has been sorted. um, so, but
Yeah, I think as a sort of symbolic of craving, the hungry ghosts of the Pretos, I think we can all relate at
yeah,
some
Oh, yes,
point.
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, 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 exactly. So I've thrown up the Nagas. I had my original image um was an image from that Thai temple, that has sculptures of all, well, probably not all the hell realms, because that would take probably the entire globe actually to depict every there'd be sculptures across every continent depicting, but of if it was every hell, every specific kind of, hell. But uh, it was originally from that temple, and it was the hell where they had to wear the heads of the animals they killed for the bazillion kalpas or whatever that they exist there. But I decided, since we already have the hell realm represented, I'd change it to the Naga realm. My was definitely one of my favorite realms and fascinations of Buddhist cosmology. And they kind of they're one of the Bhumadevas. They're one of the Dewas that kind of share our, they share the human realm with us, but kind of have their own realm um, beneath ours, kind of, in subterranean lairs and cities and that sort of thing. Um, and they're kind of they're sometimes they look like this, the several headed, you know, um, Nagas, and there's other kinds. There's ones they can appear kind of partly humanoid with with a serpent tail, and they can, or even, I think, even look completely humanoid but look like a lizard person, that sort of thing. And they're shapeshifters as well. So there's lots of things you could relate that to. um, but so basically they're kind of like they're kind of share predominantly kind of the human and the animal realm. So they have kind of humanoid characteristics, animal characteristics, and kind of divine, Dewa, Deva kind of characteristics. I was gonna so I'm just gonna read from one of the Buddhist encyclopedias that they're classified, yeah, as one of the 8 classes of gods and demons, or as animals, or demigods. So that's kind of referring to what I was just saying about them. They kind of cross over into, a few different realms. They live beneath the surface of the earth or in the water, and are believed to be endowed with magical powers and wealth, as well as being responsible for certain types of illnesses transmitted to humans. And They have a long-standing rivalry or enmity, or um, with the Garudas, the flying humanoids. That's another Bhumadeva. But anyway, they and I think they are kind of very they're, and at times they're guardians of the Dharma. They're guardians of the Buddha Dharma. Um, and at certain times when they become the guardians of they're guardians in general of the Dharma, but and of Buddhism if they're obviously if they're Buddhists, but um, and there's times where when the Dharma can't be seen by the human realm, they guard the teaching somehow. There's stories of this or narratives about this that they until the time when that teaching can be released again or brought forth by a enlightened being, a Buddha or a Bodhisattva or what have you. And they're very quick to anger. They're well, though they're very powerful beings, like they have that you you don't want to cross them. You don't want to. It's kind of like what's the what's that Chinese legendary kung fu legend Pai Mei. It's like kind of like Pai Mei. You don't want to subtly insult them or or offend them in any way, really, because they can, if it's the wrong time, the wrong place, wrong karmic causes and conditions, you might be in for it. So anyway, so I would say this kind of this mind state that this would be was kind of, you've got, if it combines kind of the human, you've got the human characteristics of a whole range of emotion and being able to think about things, but yet they have that animal consciousness, that takes over, that the reptilian brain stem, as it were, would be the human realm kind of equivalent. They have that fight or flight. Do you know what I mean? Animal reflex about them. So I would say that, there's that, and you know people that in this realm, in the human realm, in the Manaloka, that are, have those characteristics. There's probably a lot of people you want to say they're a snake in the grass, but anyway, anyway, we'll get into that. But uh, you can see where there's people that act on instinct, act on that kind of reptilian, they're more on that reptilian instinct in us than kind of more rational, reasoned, or what's the word I'm looking for? Delayed gratification, what have you. Oh yeah, that's the other realm. It's a very sensual realm too. The realm of the Nagas. It's a very sensual, uh, hypersexual kind of realm, I think. So, and again, relating that to what I was just talking about, you can see that in the human realm. So anyway, and all these things they're mind states, all in Buddhism, they're realms that beings experience in the cycle of birth and death, in samsaric existence, because of their karmic causes and conditions. So it's kind of like we experience it as different realms, but it's also it's a mind state simultaneously. It's a consciousness. It's a state of consciousness that we're in. And these realms kind of reflect that, the aspects of that. So
That's the
anyway,
interesting thing, isn't it? Because across all these realms, human, animal, whatever, there's still the same range of different experiences and emotions, and some of them, well, they're accentuated more so in some realms than in others, but they're all there, out of this grasping, that's ignorance and grasping that's at the core of the whole thing. I just find that really, really interesting. It's and in different systems, it's interesting how the deities are usually seem to be like superpowered versions of human beings. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's okay for a god to be jealous, but it's not okay for human beings to be jealous. But they're still jealousy is jealousy. You know, it's do you see what I'm getting at? So it's like it's
It,
interesting. You're right. Their mind
it
states are like in a mind stream, and once you're going
sort of
down these particular mind streams, it's expressed itself as one of these realms.
Yeah,
exactly.
and about the the Nagas, Gankai mentioned about the snake in the grass aspect reminded me of a Shinron's hymns of lament and self reflection. He says, uh, each of us in outward bearing makes a show of being wise, good, and dedicated. But so great are our greed, anger, perversity, and deceit that we are filled with all forms of malice and cunning. Extremely difficult is it to put an end to our evil nature. The mind is like a venomous snake or scorpion. Our performance of good acts is also poisoned. Hence, it is called false and empty practice. And then he goes on to say, with minds full of malice and cunning, like snakes and scorpions, we cannot accomplish good acts through self power. And unless we entrust ourselves to Amida's directing of virtue, we will end without knowing shame or self reproach. So that kind of tied in, I think, to the Naga, the snake like aspect of
Jeff.
the, and also the Nagas, in maybe it was Honan who said this first or someone else, but all the Buddhist teachings have gone into the Naga's palace,
Palace. Exactly.
and
Yes.
and
Yep.
that means basically metaphorically that they cannot be effectively practiced by people living in Mappo, right, or the final age of the Dharma. So that also refers to and Nagarjuna also, Bodhisattva Nagarjuna, our first patriarch. Uh, I guess there's a legend that he was like raised by Nagas or something like that, or he went to the Naga realm to retrieve a certain sutra or something along those
Who
lines.
did?
So
Who did? Who?
Nagarjuna,
Nagarjuna. Yeah. Well. Yeah.
mm,
Kind of the
yeah,
name. It's in the name.
it's
I
in the
think
name. Yeah,
it's in the, it's it's on the tin. It's in the name. Yeah. Um,
But
the what was I going to say? There was something just quick. Oh, the other thing about just one other thing about the Nagas was that aspect of them being guardians of the Dharma. And we all, I think, to bring that into the human realm as well. I think sometimes we feel like, we, do you know what I mean? There's times where we can, you know, slip into, um, a more animal instinct with that. Do you know what I mean? Like it's very precious to us, and we need to stay on the side of the joy, the joyful preciousness, and the humble
definitely.
gratitude side of being a guardian of the Dharma, rather than you know an aggressive, defensive guardian of the Dharma, and
Yeah.
reptilian,
absolutely.
slip into that reptilian, kind of. Uh,
Yes. Very important.
mind stem or mindset. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah.
Yeah. We're not necessarily even called to be, guardians of
No.
the Dharma per se.
True.
I think we
I'm just
we're
saying we
what we
feel
do
that
is
way. We feel like
right
it's
we
precious to
can
us.
feel
So
that way.
I think we can
Yeah.
slip into. I know I should just speak for myself. I know I feel that way
Yeah.
sometimes. I
Definitely.
start to
Me
get,
as well.
I start, looking at other religions and get a little bit, well, Buddhism is,
Yeah.
is where it's at, and the whole the whole thing. Yeah.
The
So
whole thing. Yeah. And ideally, what we do is we encounter something that is beneficial and precious and beautiful and so on, and then we naturally just want to share it with someone who's interested. So I think that's what um sometimes in Japan they talk about the joy of the Dharma. It's really more about being joyful and grateful, and that's the thing that really brings people together. So
I think that's probably one of the reasons why Renya was very insistent that we not go around shoving this down people's throats because because that's where you come up against and end up being defensive at the same time because people are going to attack, you know. Yeah.
Right. As soon as you
Yeah.
start criticizing someone
Yeah.
else's,
Right.
path or dharma or religion, then they're going to start,
Yeah.
they're going to go on defense and start attacking you back. So it's a you know, it's a no-win kind of situation
Scenario.
that you get into. And that's why, yeah, Reno was very, very, speaking of hells and so forth, he quoted that verse from Nagarjuna that says, if someone criticizes the dharma of another, then they go to they go to hell, basically. This is the verse that he quoted. And dharma there, um, doesn't necessarily mean only the Buddha Dharma, although, um, it's sort of not clear. It's the character is Ho, which means Dharma in Japanese, but it doesn't say, the necessarily a Buddhist Dharma. It could conceivably mean Dharma in a larger sense of religion, basically, in some sense. But I guess that would be an interesting conversation to have.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we've had that. A couple of our episodes, we did have a discussion about that very thing when it came to the religion. Anyway, so yeah, are there any other realms we wanted to talk about? One of my favorite is the Yaksha, Bigfoot. That's another one of my favorite realms to talk about. They're a bit rascally, you know. I think there's in Buddhist lore, there's when when somebody, I think the Buddha said something like about one of the Dewas at some point. He said, I'm going to go see this, what a particular, I don't know if it was Saka or who it was. And he said, I'm going to go see what that Yaka is up to, you know, and it's kind of like calling somebody a rascal. I think it's kind of like, do you know what I mean? Yeah, kind of somebody who's a little bit of a rascal, a bit of a clever, bit of a trickster, likes to make trouble, likes to harass people, especially if they cross their boundaries. Yeah, they have very strict the king, the four kings, the four great kings in the four great their realm. The Yaksha are in the kind of the northern quarter, the northern uh, realm, let's say, the northern quarter of Buddhist cosmology or of the galaxy or whatever you want, of the universe or the multiverse, wherever that quarter is, the north, symbolically speaking, whatever the north is of that, um, is um, is the king is he's very strict with the Yaka, with the Yaksha. It's very the king of the north is um, gives him very strict rules to follow because otherwise they'd just run amok, you know. So he has very strict rules about what they can and can't do, especially with humans that either cross into their territory or behave in certain ways around them or whatever. Um, and if you cross those boundaries, you could be in trouble. This is another realm you don't want to mess. You don't want to step into the wrong territory. You don't want to act the wrong way. You don't want to have a burdened consciousness. That's an aspect of it. Because there's humans in their realm. There's humanoids or humans in the northern realm, but the Yaksha can't touch them. So they have to come to our realm. They come to the southern quarter if they need slaves or food or whatever. They have to come to the southern quarter to get the humans. And I think some of them live here as well. They share this realm with us. They share the kind of it's the human realm and the animal realm. They cross over. They've got that. They're one of those kind of like the Nagas, and in between kind of animal humanoid kind of being. And they've at times like yeah, so if you have a burden, this is one of the teachings I've heard is that if you if you have a certain type of like a burdened consciousness, so you're burdened by life or you're burdened by your future, let's say you're really, you have a lot of potential. You're someone who has a lot of potential. Everyone has high expectations of you. You're in high school and you're going to college and you're going to go to the best. Do you know what I mean? Whatever, and you're going to be this, or in sports or whatever it is, and you have this kind of pressure, this burden to, succeed or whatever it is, or whatever your burden, whatever the burden in life is. Again, another one of the many forms of suffering. In samsaric existence, you can be susceptible to their kind of these rules that the yaksha have. So you can be taken as a burst, by the yaksha back to their realm to as a burst, a beast of burden, quote unquote. Um, um, so yeah. Anyway, that's just some of the things off the top of my head that I can relate about the Yaksha, but apparently I think the closest match to pop culture lore or conspiracy lore or paranormal lore would be Bigfoot, Sasquatch, and the lore of other cultures even. It all kind of resembles Bigfoot, Sasquatch, the Yaksha, Yaka. And then there's another type that's sometimes is conflated with the Yaksha, the Rajasta. Have you ever heard of that one? They're the ones you really want to avoid. The Rajasta. They're also share our the southern they're part of the southern quarter too. So beware of the Rajasta. They are very another thing about the yaksha, they can also do, especially the yakshini, the female um aspect of that realm. They can shapeshift and appear as very beautiful, you know, human beings and things like that. And I think just all yaksha, they have a degree of that shape shifting, kind of power. There's all kinds of supernatural powers. I've read tons and tons. Like I've read a lot about them in it from like the Jains and the Hindu kind of, lore about them. And they've just endless amounts of different, sort of powers. So, and then it's flying through the air. They can go great distances through the air. And I wonder whether that just kind of means they walk from, through time and space kind of thing, where almost, you know, like they could walk across the universe just right into our realm from their realm. And it's just like taking a walk down the street type of thing. Do you know what I mean? Anyway, so anyway, but I'm just thinking the type of consciousness that would, what would that, the yaksha consciousness kind of represent in the human, say the human realm, the kind of rascally trickster, someone trying to trip you up with the rules, you know what I mean? Someone who likes to, if if you cross their boundaries or their kind of imagined rules, or we all do it. Actually, we all do that. We all have those, we have these boundaries and ideas and rules about how life is supposed to be and expectations. And if somebody crosses that, you know there's times where we feel like, oh, that's fair game. They're fair game. They're, they crossed they broke the rule, you know kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? Anyway, sorry, were you going to say something, Jason?
Oh no, just a question, just more of a question more than anything else. Where do the actors, for example, I mean, generally speaking, when in the imagery that's presented when it comes to these realms, you've got so much to go off of. go up and some that go down. And human realm, generally speaking, pictured in between. It's like one of
Yeah.
these middle realms. So, like the
I
axis, are they like are they
I
going
think
up
they're
or
pretty equal with us, kind of.
okay,
I
right.
think they're very like in our terrestrial kind of realm. I think, like in their like in the northern quarter, again, wherever that is, however you want to kind of see that, that provisional teaching about, the four quarters of the universe or galaxy or multiverse. Um, in their realm, they some of them there's like a whole range, just like humans have. There's people that live very primitive. There's some of them live very primitively, and then some of them are more advanced. Do you know what I mean? And like they have, like some of them live in these floating sort of cities above the place where where the human realms of the northern quarter are, which is like, whoo, you you're living pretty good if you're in the northern quarter as a human, in that human realm. You've got it pretty nice. It's like a, I don't know, hippie commune paradise that actually works. It's a hippie commune that actually functions and doesn't turn into, horrible things, you know. Um, Wherever, and in that realm, it's kind of like the Dewa realm. Like, you're human, but just you the food is just there for you to take. Do you know what I mean? Everyone shares everything. People take their clothes off, go for a swim. Someone else picks up those clothes and takes them. You go up the other end of the river and take some other clothes that are on the beach. You know what I mean? Put those on. If you even need clothes, you know, everyone shares the child rearing. There's no pain for women when they give birth. There's no pain. It's really easy. There's no pain in death for them. They live quite a while, as far as I know, as well. But there's one catch: no dharma, no dharma, no Buddhas, nothing. There's no chance for encountering the Buddha Dharma in that realm. So they got it pretty good, but they got it pretty bad in that sense, because they're just gonna lose that opportunity. I mean, obviously they're living quite well in that realm, and so they treat each other, just naturally treat each other very well. So I guess that would be good karma, but they're gonna burn it out. There's no chance. They're just whatever their next life, whatever their next existence is going to be dependent on their karma, not they just they don't have that opportunity to for the dharma that other beings and realms might have. But anyway, so the yaksha apparently, you could look at this like, I would say, the floating city, like Cloud City, in Star Trek. They have the Yakshas have these Cloud City, or Cloud City is like in that episode of Star Trek, or in Star Wars, Cloud City. Um, there's in both those in both those franchises, there's a Cloud City. But anyway, and it's more advanced, and so you've got those kind of Yaksha, and they live, but they kind of live like us. They have, societies, and in that sense, they live. It's very much like a human realm. Politics and the whole thing. And I would see, if you want to look at it from a, I don't know, sci-fi point of view, you could say, that these planets that these humans are on in the northern quadrant of the galaxy, say those moons, there'd be moons that the Yaksha would be on, and they were kind of guardian over these humans in that quarter. But anyway, they can't touch them though. That's part of the rules. They can't. I mean, they're beautiful specimens of humans, so it must be torture. Like, that's another aspect of the suffering of the Yaksha. It must be like they have to protect these beings, but it must be kind of torture because they're like perfect specimens. Do you know what I mean? That they can't have or use, or you know what I mean? So for some of them it must be kind of torturous. So they kind of live in a terrestrial way like we would. So I'd say they have their own realm, but they share, it's pretty much similar to our realm, except they can walk across the universe. You know, that's the difference is in what they can do. Do you see what I mean? They still have to live in similar environments that we live as humans. Do you see what I mean? But they can just, you know, and I think some of them live here too. I think some of them live and share our on the southern, you know, in the southern quadrant. They're here. You know, it's just part of their home, you know. And as I say, they're primitive, some of them are primitive, some of them are more advanced. Some of them have these quote unquote chariots, you know, flying through the air, you know, kind of like UFOs, you know, kind of thing. Anyway,
But
but
yeah, it's
you know,
that's really interesting because I mean the
yeah.
sutras do go on about
Yeah.
there's hundreds, thousands of
Oh,
approximately.
we
Well,
lost Kyokan. Anyway, go ahead. Yeah, keep talking. I'll bring him back. Go ahead. Yeah, keep going.
you have different, thousands, hundreds of thousands of worlds and realms and dimensions and all that type of stuff. There's no limit, really, it seems, within Buddhist cosmology to what's actually out there. Whereas, do you see what I'm getting at? So it's perfectly possible for there to be things which,
Yeah.
like you were saying, the flying chariots, for example, if they happen to be spotted in this film, would look like, well,
Exactly. I
um,
th I thought we lost you there to the Yaksha there.
No,
I thought you went
what
missing
happened?
411
Sorry.
there for a minute. I thought we had a, you know, an actual Yaksha abduction just then. Uh
No, I don't. I'm connected to the Wi-Fi at the cafe, and the timer it timed out, so I had to redo it. Sorry about
okay.
that.
Oh, either that or I thought, oh no, this is really just getting out there. I'm out.
She's
I'm out.
gone.
I'm out. I'm out. This is getting too out there. It's getting too, you know.
No. I love this stuff. I've always had a fascination with Indian mythology, and in fact, I just bought like the full Princeton University Press translation of the Ramayana. So, and that has a
Oh,
lot of
cool.
this stuff, like
Oh, yeah.
the Rakshasas and all that
Yeah.
stuff. So
Oh, the
it's pretty cool.
Rakshasas. Oh, we could go
What's
on about them. They're very cool. But you do not want to mess.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
What's interesting about this stuff is, of course, if anyone is a Hindu listening, they're going to say, "Well, oh, but we have all that stuff too," and that's true. Of course, it's
Yeah.
all common to
Yeah.
Indian mythology. But
Jains, yeah, Hindus. Yeah.
one thing that Buddhism did that was kind of unique, as far as I know, was um, basically sort of rehabilitated all of these creatures and all of these
Yep.
mythological deities and beings as protectors and guardians of the Dharma. And Shinran
Yes.
also emphasizes this in Kyogyo Shinsho. I wanted to just share as an example of that for the Yakshas. There's a text from a sutra. It's the Maha Mayuri Vidya Rajni Sutra, which is a 4th century Sanskrit.
I just love where it just rolls off the tongue.
It just rolls off the tongue. Yeah.
It's like so it's like the tripartite tractate, you know, in Gnosticism. Yeah. Just, yeah.
Translated, it means apparently the Great Peacock Wisdom Sutra or something like that. But anyway, and it talks about the Yakshas, and it says, so Vaishravana, who resides in the city Alakavadi, located along the jeweled stairway of the Buddha's ascent, is surrounded by billions of gods and goddesses. Such Yakshas command huge and powerful contingents of troops to subjugate adversaries and enemies, conquering all. They are famous throughout all directions. Imbued with great dignity and virtue, they come to aid in the battles between the heavens and Asheras. Asheras are like the demonic forces, demons in Indian mythology. These deities of virtues and great Yaksha generals are located everywhere in Jambudvipa. They uphold and protect the Buddha Dharma, generating compassion. So, very interesting and important in Buddhism is these aren't in Indian mythology. All these deities and beings are kind of like how to put it. Um, rolling cannons, is loose cannons, is that the phrase?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And they're all kind of looking out for their own interests. They're
Exactly.
all selfishly guarding their own
Kind of
territories,
like the
like in the
human realm. Pretty
Ramayana.
much, it's like the human realm.
Pretty
Yeah,
much, yeah. It's an extension of the human realm. In the Ramayana, for example, in Lanka, the demons have their kingdom, which no people dare to go to, and so on. But what Buddhism did is actually repurposed all of these beings as compassionate protectors of the Dharma, and essentially said, well, all these beings, they all converted to the Buddhist teaching, and they're all, as Shinron says multiple times, they all basically are working for the Buddha now.
including the
they're the
Maras, including the
Buddhas. Yeah, yeah,
Mara,
including the
Mara, and the
Maras, the
Maras.
Mara
Yeah,
kings, yeah,
the ultimate.
everything.
Yeah,
So Buddhism kind of took the terror, as it
took the
were, out of all this stuff and said, they're all compassionate, they're all working to do the Buddha's work, and
yeah,
they're all working for the purpose of compassion of
yeah,
the world. So I think that's kind of something on this topic of all these
yeah.
scary
Well,
looking
it,
things for
symbolically,
Halloween that we're talking about.
I think symbolically you can look at it kind of like what Buddhism did to reform the Vajra, the great Vajra weapon. You know, the four-pronged or three-pronged or weapon of the god of the Dewas of the powerful various
Right,
powerful beings would use. And I realize it turns up in other mythologies. The trident. Anytime you see a trident, that's basically a Vajra, or the lightning bolt of Zeus. That's
yeah,
basically the Vajra, and it's a very powerful lightning light weapon. And there's this in the text you were talking about, the Hindu text. There's great wars fought with the Vajra,
right, yeah,
and in Buddhism, they've been the Buddha or various beings
mm,
have the Vajra. If you see a Vajra now in Buddha, if you see the
yeah,
Vajra in Buddhism, the three prongs or the four prongs are kind of bent into themselves
yeah,
at either end
uh,
of
yeah,
it. And when I say four prong, it's just there's prongs at either end of it, um, and they've been kind
right,
of bent into themselves. So the power is almost kind of self-sustaining, flowing properly through this now kind of
right,
peaceful, powerful implement of the Dharma, rather than a weapon of,
yeah.
mass destruction. And
Hammering swords into
yeah,
plowshares,
kind
as
of
it
like
were.
the toroidal, it's kind of like the toroidal, to put it in like physics, kind of, the toroidal forces. Do you know what I mean? Where they
Mm,
have that, I can't explain all the maths and the physics around it, but you know what I'm saying? That at either end, and there's that bit in the middle, and it all kind of just, it's self-sustaining kind of power. I don't know if that's a good analogy or not, or if I'm even getting the physics right on that. But anyway, it's become kind of, I think that's kind of symbolic of what's happened to, or it's analogous to what's happened, like you just said, of all of Buddhism with all these realms and beings, that turned, it's all been
yeah.
turned toward the Dharma instead of out
Well, yeah, exactly.
toward
And
toward everyone's own agendas and selfish uh you know motives,
mhm,
and pursuit of our own desires, and all of that, in all these realms, however that manifests. Anyway,
right. And
sorry.
also, I think especially in Shinron Shonin's time, people were very superstitious and believed that, like one of the reasons why in Ryakuji, the Tendai temple is located in the northeast of Kyoto on Mount Hiei, is because that was where it was believed, demonic attacks were most likely to originate from, that direction, the northeast. So that's where they built the temple for, protection for the capital, Kyoto. So people were very, very superstitious, and they would worship and make offerings and placate these powerful deities and these beings in hopes of that they for protection or at least not to get
Yeah.
trampled on the in the way. And Shinron really emphasizes in the sixth chapter of Kyogyo Shinsho, you don't need to be afraid of these beings and worship them and be afraid of them, because they're all working for the Buddha now. They're all on team Shakyamuni, and so you don't need to be afraid of these things anymore. And so I think that's why Shinron Shonin emphasizes that a lot in his in the Waton, and also in the because he says, all of these beings protect and revere the practicer of the Nimbutsu. So the Nimbutsu practicers are
Yes.
sort of the honored guests, the honored ones amongst all these, creatures and beings. And so
It says that all the gods are good. I mean, it's
right. Yes, they're all to be called good because they all
yeah.
protect the practicer of the Nimbutsu, right? Yeah.
And I'm thankful for that because there's rather a lot of them.
And that's, I guess it's same with the Vajra, it's kind of become a part of the Dharma now, a protector of the Dharma rather than a, weapon type of thing. For anybody who doesn't
Right.
know, this is a Vajra. I got my Tibetan Ninju here. It has a little Vajra on the end of it there. You can you see that?
Yes, I could see it
There's a little
briefly.
mini
Yeah.
one. And I've got one of the four-way kind of, I got this at some point as a little necklace kind of thing. Has like four, can you see it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Four Vajra in the
Yeah.
four directions. There's a mandala that's based around that, I think, in like one of the Bhutan images, I think,
Mm-hmm.
has that. But anyway,
Yeah, it's a common symbol in Shingon as well, because esoteric Buddhism generally, I think, uses that the Vajra as a pretty common symbol or motif. And of course, it's part of a ritual implement. If you ever go to Japan, I highly recommend you watch a Goma ritual at a Shingon temple where they invoke the deity of the fire and do the ritual. It's a very interesting experience. Yeah,
that would
that's
be
all I
very
can really
cool.
say about it. You kind of
Yeah.
have to see it and experience it yourself to
You've mentioned that. Yeah, you've
appreciate it.
mentioned that before. Yeah. As you can see, I've got my Chinese Naga, my box for, that holds all my beads and incense and everything, guarded by the Nagas.
Awesome, that's
My Buddhist
beautiful.
Nenju is guarded by the and Vajra and everything else is guarded by the Nagas. Anyway.
Yeah, the dragon shows
Wow.
up a lot at Hongwan-ji. Actually, the full name of Nishi Hongwanji temple is Ryu Kokuzan Hongwanji, which means something along the lines of the Dragon Mountain, the land of the dragons, temple of the primal vow. And so the dragon character is actually in the full name of the temple. And
Oh,
there's
cool.
a huge dragon where you go to wash your hands before you go to worship, and there's if you look, you'll see dragons literally in the big lanterns. I don't know if you've ever seen some of the pictures maybe I've shared of Hongwanji. There's those huge gold lanterns. If you look up at the bottom of the lantern, there's a dragon there.
Very cool.
Holding the,
Oh, cool.
you can see its eyes. So there are dragons everywhere in Hongwanji.
That's
Yeah.
in the sutras talk about dragons here and there and everywhere too, and you think,
The present at present at the, there's all kinds of, Nagas and dragons present at the, when the Buddha is giving sutras. But yeah, go ahead. Yes.
So it's just really, really interesting because you think, dragons as being a mythical creature, but the presenting the sutras is actually being quite real,
Yeah, and what is interesting about that is it's possible that very, very in ancient times, maybe the Nagas actually were like a tribe or
Yeah,
something,
there is
of people. And then it got mythologized gradually over time, or other. So there's a lot of, I think, different theories as to
things
how
get
those things
conflated.
were
Things,
sort of
yeah,
developed over the
or
centuries. But
or
yeah, it's
something was
very
already
interesting.
already there, and it kind of got mapped onto that culture or that tribe.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Kind of thing. The way I kind of see the realms just really quickly is kind of like if you look, just stick with ours, our experience of the human realm, in Buddhism, the way I kind of see the teaching is, this, in a sense, the Buddha teaches this is like a dream. This isn't real. This, even our own realm isn't real. Do you see, do you see what I mean? But we experience it. We experience this delusion. We experience this delusory um, existence, provisional existence based on our, individual karma and collective karma, etc. And I kind of see that the same way in other realms. The other realms aren't any more real or less real than the human realm. Do you see what I mean? Like if you're in that consciousness, whether if you're in the hell being consciousness, then you know, it's in the samsaric sense, the Buddhist sense, it's not real, but you're experiencing it. Do you see what I mean? According to your karmic causes and conditions. In the same way we experience the human realm. Do you see what I mean? We
Well,
kind
yeah,
of know, we know
it's
it's
like
not real, but yet here we are,
well,
and we're
when
stuck here unless there's, unless in our case Amida intervenes.
but when you're asleep and you're dreaming, as far as you're concerned, unless you're capable of doing the what's it called, that we know you're dreaming sort of thing. But when you're asleep and dreaming, as far as you're concerned, that's your reality. And depending on how vivid the dream is, when you wake up, oh my goodness, that was just a dream. But this is where it interests me about the word Buddha means awakened one. So you go to the Pure Land and want to wake up there, well, be like waking up from a bad dream. Because I think it's right to say that this is considered to be a dream because being asleep and enlightened and whatnot. So but when you are dreaming, though, you see that as being your reality at the time you're dreaming. It's not until you wake up, you go, oh, wait a minute, that wasn't real. This is, and the feelings are different. Is that the sort of thing that you're meaning in terms that it's not real, but in the sense that when you're dreaming it, it's as real
Yeah,
to you in your
that's
consciousness.
that's what I mean. Yes,
Yeah.
that's a very good analogy, or metaphor, or whatever that is, to use to what I was trying to say. Uh, you know, so yeah.
Well, I think too, we are asleep and dreaming, and our eyes are closed, so to speak, in the sense that we don't see things as they truly are. We do not see the true reality of things the way that the awakened ones do, right? And so, um, in that sense, to awaken, to realize Bodhi awakening, it's like having your eyes opened for the first time to the reality of myself, because we assume that we have an independently existing substantial self, right? But we don't see ourselves as uh, dependently originated in the sense that we truly exist, right? Is that we exist in the sense that all things exist, And of course, you can say it, but to say it and to truly realize it are
Are
two
two different
different
things.
things,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
The Buddha has truly realized it. We are just talking about
Yeah. It's
it.
exactly.
Yeah.
And it's like, so I just think, the way we experience this here, this dream here, as we do, beings in other realms experience their dream that way, in that sense. Um, it is kind of cool that with all these realms that you know, you had all, that when the Buddha came, he flipped it. We talk about the Shinran flip. The Buddha, Shakyamuni came, and the teachings are it's all flipped. In I guess in Buddhism in general, whatever Buddha is teaching that anywhere, that you don't need to fear. There's no need to fear any of this. There's no need to worry about it. Um, Now, obviously, if you're on the self-power path, you do need to worry. you you do need to worry about it an awful lot. Uh, like your life depends on it, type of thing.
That is a good point. Yeah,
Yeah. So you do,
good point.
you do. But if you're reliant on the mind of Amida that he's giving us, if you're
Mhm.
reliant on Buddha's vow power, the power of his primal vow, then you don't need to worry about it in
No.
that sense. But I suppose in some sense, even you don't need to be fearful, even on the self-power path. The teaching is basically you don't need to fear these realms. They're
Yeah,
they're they've been transformed by Buddhism as well. That consciousness has been
mhm.
transformed by the Buddhist teaching, by the Dharma as well, or
Yeah,
has the potential to be, or I don't know.
yeah,
Anyway, it's kind of
yeah.
like
And
Halloween. The idea in Western cultures, this is Western culture with Halloween. Day of the Dead in other cultures is very different thing. But I suppose there's some of this in that Day of the Dead stuff too. There's that yeah. So it's kind of a Western Halloween or Day of the Dead. I think in both there's an element of the whole idea of you're in the day that you're celebrating the life of people that have passed, but there's an aspect of it and of Halloween that it's almost like um, the idea of it is to scare you out of the dream of it, to kind of to wake you up is the idea of, what I mean? Do you know what I mean? The scaring isn't to make it real, it's to see it's not real. Did you see to see how am I trying to say it? Um to see it that it's a dream, like in Buddhism. Do you see what I mean? And so, but we don't need to do that ourselves. The Buddhas have done that for us. The Buddhas have kind of turned that around for us. Does that make sense?
yeah, all we have to do is listen and
Yeah,
hear.
yeah.
Chomo, right? So yeah, completely.
So, yeah, and speaking of which, bringing it back to kind of Jodo Shinshu sort of, teaching here solidly. So what's the Jodo Shinshu take? I mean, we've alluded to that a couple of times in different passages earlier. Kyokan, or Myoshin, what's the Jodo Shinshu sort of approach to all these realms and these,
Mm,
I mean, part of my feeling is, as a Buddhist, they're just, fellow beings. I don't think of them as like, oh, these weird realms, oh, scary, oh, like, you know what I mean? Like, oh, strange, weird. It's just kind of normal to me. It's just they're fellow beings. They're just a different kind of realm that I've experienced. Do you know what I mean? In my karmic past, in my, many kalpas of karmic existence have experienced. So it's just kind of their fellow beings. They're doing their thing. We're doing ours. We both have the Buddha Dharma. So let's listen to it. Let's listen to the Dharma.
yeah,
Say Nimbutsu Anyway, that's kind of my take. But can we talk if you can talk about that for a bit, both of you?
Yeah, would you like to go first, Jason?
Well, I can't help thinking about the fact that in the primal vow, it's for all sentient beings in all the directions. So you've got the inconceivable working of the name, the light of Amida, working in all these realms, continuously and unobstructed as well. We're talking about how their representations, well, not representations, but you know what I mean. They seem to have the extremes of various, mindsets and whatnot, but they're not an obstruction to the working of the primal vow. And that's what, strikes me about the. But that's how I see it anyway. I don't see them wherever they are. I don't see it like why I quite like your introduction to these videos. Wherever you are, whatever realm you're in,
Whatever state of mind, whatever state of consciousness, whatever conditions. Yeah.
And that's me to put it. He's if you see what I'm saying, his light is unobstructed by all these issues, and that great compassion is to all, whatever the condition, whatever level of evil or good or whatever, it's or ability. That's the primal vow's got it.
There's no obstruction. The light goes everywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
Amida's mind goes everywhere. It's everywhere.
Yeah. Unobstructed.
Unobstructed.
Important. Yeah.
All worlds everywhere. 10 directions. And then some.
Yeah, couldn't have said it better myself. I think exactly so. In fact, I think last time Gankai and I had a meeting, we did read that I find myself just going back to that one passage from the larger sutra that talks about the light shining everywhere and working on all beings in every conceivable realm of existence, including, the insects that crawl. It talks about the light touching everybody. And we seem to keep going back to that passage. I think we read it like every time we meet. Because it says it all,
Do you have that? Do you have some of the largest Myoshin? Do you have the largest sutra open right now?
Well, yes, but it's on it's on some even more disturbing passages about
I know, but would you be
like
able to find what the passage that Kyokan's referring to? Quickly or not so quickly? Possibly.
Probably not quite so quickly because I'm not entirely sure.
I can probably find it as well. It's actually a translation from the.
While you're searching for that, Myoshin, did you want to read some of the passages that I'm mindful that we haven't done that. You had some passages that you thought.
Oh, I'm not too sure how it would fit into what we've talked about.
Okay.
Because I think, in those passages, the five burnings and whatnot. In fact, I've got a question for Kyokan about the five burnings. But it goes into how how these terrible mindsets
play out.
Horrific consequences and Shakyamuni Buddha's. I've always wondered whether or not Shakyamuni was sort of like he went into this explanation of people of the world and the way the world is, and sort of like trying to do a sharp contrast between the way it is in the Pure Land. You've got these two contrasts. This is what it's like in the Pure Land. This is what it's like if you want to stick around samsara. If you see what I mean. But
exactly. Yeah, Kyokan and I talked about that. I've talked about that in a couple of videos yet that I haven't posted yet. That contrast in the
are the five burnings referred to by Shinman? Is that what he means by the five defilements?
You're on
mute, Kyokan.
You're on mute.
Oh, sorry. I thought I was on mute, and then I pushed the button and I muted it. I did hear your question. You're saying, are the five burnings in the second half of the Lord Sutra the same as the five defilements
that Shinman talks about? Are they the same, or does Shinman at all sort of like refer to?
Yeah, Shinron doesn't. I mean, we have one thing I think people don't realize is, Shinron actually. There's an annotated edition of the larger sutra, the entire sutra. And I saw it at the Kyoto National Museum. It's the sutra, and then in the margins is Shinron's handwriting, and he has notes on literally almost every character of the entire sutra. So, but in the major writings that are in, for example, the collected works of Shinron, um, the five burnings, I think, is distinct from the five defilements. The five defilements is referring to Mappo, the defilements of, I think it's lifespan. There's like five things that characterize beings in Mappo, in the ages, as the ages decline, or as the Dharma declines, rather. The five burnings that Shakyamuni is talking about in the larger sutra is basically each of those very how to say, unfavorable tendencies that he describes in each of those. He says the third burning is this, and then he says beings do such and such, and they're selfish and they're greedy, and they don't treat each other well, and they end up in a bad
detail
place.
shows how it all plays out.
Yeah,
and is perpetuated. And so,
I think to answer your question, the five burnings is distinct from the five defilements.
I've always wondered that because I've heard some commentary on the larger Pure Land Sutra, and I wondered where that commentary is coming from, considering that I haven't yet found anything in the collected works when Rainer was writing where he seems to refer, where the authority for the commentary is coming. There's nothing. Is there anywhere in Shinman's collected works where he's actually talking about that passage in the second part of the?
No, there's not much about it. Yeah, and the reason is because it's one, it's sort of self-explanatory.
Yeah.
In a sense, because if you read it, it's saying this is how things are, and I don't think anybody who reads that is going to say, well, that's not quite how things are. I mean, oh yeah, this, I get this. This is how things are, truly. And then he says, if people are compassionate and practice the way, they will reach, enlightenment and so on. So it's, I think it kind of doesn't call for explanation or commentary in the way that the tradition has developed, doctrine regarding the vows, for example, and the Pure Land Buddhism and Jodo Shinshu in particular is really very much focused on the soteriological aspect, right? How are we benefited and liberated by this teaching? So I think that's where the weight of the commentary is. The five burnings passage, although it's, for me, it's always one of those parts of the larger sutra that kind of, when I was first reading and discovering the larger sutra, that was actually the part that stood out to me, because yes, I thought this is such a incredibly detailed and well observed description of the world, and I thought whoever is making this description must know what they're talking about.
Well, yeah, it's like reading today's newspaper. I mean,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Now, the reason why I asked is because you can read these passages and whatnot, but I mean, when you read through them, Shakyamuni talks about people needing to stop and cease from doing the evil and do good instead. Which, when you consider that we're talking about how that relates. Well, how do you fit that with the primal vow and this thing about entrusting yourself to to the working of the primal vow? It doesn't somehow. It's not. I just wondered whether there was any way that
Well,
that's why I was asking about commentary and stuff like that, because I would have thought
Yeah.
we're talking about, okay, he's presenting a different solution now. He's saying to people, desist from evil and do good, which is more like the self power,
Mm.
And I just wondered,
Well, it's not, but it's not it's true. We should stop,
well, yes,
treating each
I
other
know that. I'm just
badly.
saying,
Right?
it's in
Yeah.
terms of the blind passions and the various these can go to. The idea is you entrust yourself to the primal vow, knowing these blind passions are still going on. So I mean, but the solution presented there is more kind of like it's more of a better way of putting it, like hard line. Just stop doing it, do good, and then you eventually. So
Yeah.
just guessing it, it's just like is it because maybe the mindsets of what he's referring to is it needs that kind of
Right.
what's the word, addressing, if you see what I'm getting at, rather than
Yeah. I think, well, Rinyo Shonin also says similar things to that. People should stop doing, bad things. And he also says that people who realize Shinji will treat each other with kindness and understanding and so on naturally without, even trying.
Perhaps maybe it's time for another episode of Bamboo in Daily Life, where we discuss this very thing.
Yeah.
One of the just can I interject something really quickly, really here? When in my recent reading of the sutras, kind of following Reverend Fukumoto's instruction or approach to read them all through and then read the collected works of Shinran, after that. In this time when I've been doing that and kind of repeatedly kind of reading through and rewinding and going back and reading again to make sure I've absorbed it. One of the things that's been happening as I've been reading through it is I see it kind of through I see it all through the Jodo Shinshu teaching. So when it comes to a passage, like each of the passages after with the 5 burnings, and it says, but if you do this, this, and this, and this, and have this attitude, and da 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 da, I hear in my mind, I hear Amida has done these practices, has done these meditations, has done this, and projected his mind to us so that we can go to Pure Land and advance immediately on the spiritual path. Do you see what I mean? Like I see it, I sort of see it, all those kind of passages. I kind of, in my mind, I kind of hear or see it's saying Amida has done this for us. Do you see what I mean? All the self-power stuff Amida has done for us. All the practices that are talked about in the sutras throughout, Amida has done all that for us so that we can go to Pure Land and immediately become Buddhas and then, return.
Right. And the good that leads to enlightenment is not, is the pure good, right, of the Tathagata, that the thus come one of the Buddha. It's not the mixed or the poison good, like Shinran says, that we create as an enlightened being. So I think to answer Jason's question, this is all what the larger sutra, what Shakyamuni says in the larger sutra is true, but can I, by doing good, realize that result? Is the question you have to ask yourself, and then say, Shinran's conclusion was, no, my mind, like you said, is like snakes and scorpions. There's no way I can realize the pure good that the Buddha realized and realizes.
Isn't that also why
so the only
teaches, way? Oh, sorry. Isn't that why he also teaches about, these are provisional teachings and these are the true teachings, and the true teachings are for Bamboo, for the ordinary being. The others are for extraordinary beings. The others are for, do you know what I mean? Our self power,
Right.
and he divides them, up. Don't the Dharma masters kind of do that? Kind of, this is the true, and
Yeah.
this is
Yeah. And right. And even in the larger sutra, you have the five true vows, and it's called, and then the other vows are sometimes referred to as provisional, and so on. So, but I think does that address sort of your question, Jason, with regard to the second half of the larger sutra, or do you think there's still more to be discussed or digged into there?
Oh, no, it's something I've always been curious about because you can track,
Yeah.
okay, this is the first part, not the Pure Land, massive intricate description of the Pure Land, 48 vows, and the Jodo Shinshu, the concentration of the 18th vow and whatnot. And it seems to go back to the Pure Land after the that section in part two. And I've often wondered, why why is this very large part of this sutra talking about doing this and this and stopping this and this, like bang in the middle of all. I'd just be curious. That's all.
Yeah.
And was there any kind of like commentary on it from Schumann that I've somehow missed or whatever?
Isn't it
right?
Isn't
Just
it
curious,
because
really. Yeah.
well, because the Buddha in all the Pure Land Sutras, he's making provision for all
Yeah.
karmic causes and conditions,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
including bamboo, including anybody that maybe at some time and place and with karmic conditions they could practice these. Do you see what I mean? He's making, or people that even if they can't, their karmic causes and their consciousness are such that they got to try. So
Yeah.
he, do you see what I mean? And
Oh,
it
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
plants a
Absolutely.
seed, or that's what it seems like to me, that the he's the Buddha has made provision in all of these, all of the sutras for
I mean,
self
that's
power
why you've
and
got the 19th and 20th vow. It's for people that just cannot let go of their own self-power mind. And, it's...
And, you have to remember too, like the Nirvana Sutra says, the Buddha teaches the Dharma as the Dharma is. He teaches beings as beings are.
Yeah.
He teaches everything as it is. And according to Honen Shonin, the larger sutra is the truth untrammeled, as it were. It's just the totally pure expression of the Pure Land teaching, and that's where Shinran got his emphasis on the larger sutra as well. But so when Shakyamuni, and also too on the more text critical historical side, there's a lot of that is in Japan, textual analysis and criticism and so on, that probably hasn't even made it into English. But to what degree, for example, the larger sutras is a somewhat composite work, recording different a diversity of memories or perspectives on the teaching, right, is sort of an open question as well, because the sutra that we have is clearly a in a late stage of that process of development, and there may be multiple voices within the sutra itself, but that's kind of like interesting to know. So then what do we do with that spiritually, right? And I think basically for me personally, the second half is always just the Shakyamuni teaching sentient beings, living beings as living beings are. he's just putting the truth out there.
Yeah.
And it's funny because when you read the part about the five burnings, the contrast with the Pure Land.
Yes, that's what I was saying.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
It creates this dynamic of, oh, okay, I kind of get that now. Yeah, I get this now. Whereas if it was just this description of this glorious Pure Land, this, I think it's called, this description of nirvana, essentially, but using positive language instead of the negative language that the Prajnaparamita sutras use. Nirvana's not this, not that, not the other thing. Well, in the Pure Land Sutra, we have let's describe nirvana in a positive, using a positive language. But if it was only that,
Yeah.
well, then it's just this very nice, very beautiful description of this transcendent world without the contrast, so to speak, with our world, the reality of what we experience in samsara. You don't get that sort of balance. So I think, looking at the Larger Sutra as a literary, work, I think the section on the five burnings is kind of essential to the balance, the structure of the sutra. I don't think you can just take that away. See,
No.
in the Contemplation Sutra, Shakyamuni doesn't go into all that because he doesn't need to, because the Contemplation Sutra takes place in the midst of the five burnings. You have the prince who killed his father and who's now threatening his mother, and his mother who has her own problems, Queen Videhi. It takes place in this, you don't have to point all that out. It's clearly taking place in the midst of the five burnings, as it were. But in the Larger Sutra, Shakyamuni is talking to monks. He's talking to bhikkhus, and he's talking to bodhisattvas, basically. So he has to tell about what reality is like in samsara. Whereas in the Contemplation Sutra, there's no need because it's already clear, right? That at least is my sort of thoughts on the matter, as it were.
Yeah, I've always thought that maybe it was sort of like, as it's always struck me as being like, well, here's a contrast, like you were talking about. This is what the Pure Land's like, and it's almost like the contrast is deliberately there to make you think, hold on a minute, where do I prefer to be? Do I carry on in this
Exactly.
horrible, vicious
Yeah.
cycle of a mess? Or do I want to,
We've had Kyokan and I have had very recent discussions of just that in the videos where I did the Shinjitsu videos,
okay.
where we discussed that. And there's one more I have to, or one or two more I have to upload that we discussed just that contrast, contrast between, the Pure Land, the Nirvana, the realm of the, of the Buddha mind, contrasted with the samsaric.
The other contrast is it's like, okay, the Pure Land and the 48 vows, that's what comes from a pure mind and a pure compassionate heart, compared to the samsaric realms and the samsaric world that Shaku described, which comes out of an impure, a defiled, and the three poisons type of thing. This is what what these create. The poisons are the defiled sort of like mind project and create, and this is what happens when the Buddha does it. So
exactly.
Yeah. This is what the samsaric mind creates, and this is what the Buddhic mind, creates. Enlightened mind, the awakened mind.
I think that's a great way to look at it as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I think that the second half of the sutra really is there to create the contrast and the balance with the description of the Pure Land in the first half. And then of course it ends with the beings in our world seeing the glory of Amita's light in the Pure Land. So you have this contrast, which is then, bridged in the end of the sutra. So it's like the perfect coda to what went before. I don't think there's been enough
a similar
analysis.
Go ahead. I think it's been as a similar principle in Buddhism with these other realms, looking at reflecting on these other realms, looking at these other realms. The whole idea of doing that and looking at our own existence and relating it to these other realms, and do you know what I mean? And seeing even the Dewa realm, even with how good they have in the Deva realms, how bad it actually is. That's not actually a good. Do you know what I mean? And and down to the worst health. The whole idea of it is to focus us on the Dharma, is to focus us on the awakened mind. We want to get to the awakened mind. It's almost like a motivating. It's kind of similar. It should motivate us to want to look. We want to see that Pure Land. We want to see. Do you see what I mean? It should make us
Yep.
want to see that Pure Land. I want to go to that Pure Land. I want to be,
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. It's there to create that, desire to get unstuck from what we're stuck in, right? And the aspiration for enlightenment, the aspiration for awakening, although, it's hard for us to realize that in the true bodhisattva sense, of course. Basically, Amida gives us that aspiration through his aspiration. I think is one way that we can read that. But you also have to remember too, the text requires interpretation, and if you read, the Pure Land Sutra read just as it is written, says that we have to essentially do good deeds and then transfer that merit toward being born in the Pure Land. It's only Shinran who has the interpretation of it's called Nyorai Iko in Japanese, or the Tathagata's directing a virtue to us. Honen did not have that interpretation. None of the other Pure Land masters had that interpretation. That idea is unique to Shinran. So we read, as followers of Shinran, we read the sutras in the light of that sort of revolutionary idea, right?
He flipped the script.
Well, that's I think the interesting about the parts and the five burnings and whatnot, because how can beings that which Shakyamuni is teaching, this is the way people are. How could the transference of merit from beings like that be more than what Chantal says, poison good?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So
yeah, exactly. And
that seals Shinran's point right there. It has to be merit directed to us. We haven't got it.
Yeah. Exactly.
So yeah, well, is there anything else, everybody? I think we've reached a pretty good point in the discussion there with that last last
I
note.
would say
the whole
so.
idea of all this is we want to go to Pure Land. and we need Amida's, and we only can get there through Amida's power.
It is the favorite destination.
I don't want to be in any of these other realms ever again. However cool, however amazing, however horrid, however, strange, however, wonderful it is to look at these realms, and it's still a car crash. Samsara is still a complete and utter bleep show, clown show. And we need to go to Pure Land. We need Amida's help to get there. We need Amida's mind. It's all up to Amida to get there.
And then we can freely work to
go to all of them.
All beings.
As Buddhas, as multiple forms of Nirmanakaya Buddhas. We can go to all of them, and be unaffected.
I think the word sporting is used in that.
Sporting, yes. Yeah. Sporting in the forest.
Exactly.
In the gardens of
Nice. All right. Well, yeah, I think we've what do you reckon? Has this Dharma dialogue gone on for as long as it had to? Are we in agreement?
Yeah.
I would say so.
To keep with that rule of Shaku brothers. Excellent. All right. Well, thank you all so much for joining in this discussion, and for anyone who will be watching once I post this. Do you want to take us out with some Nimbutsu, Kyokan? I'm giving you lots of practice for when, after you eventually,
Yeah.
undergo Tokudo.
Right. Well, fortunately, we don't need Tokudo to say Nimbutsu.
No,
So
no,
let's.
we don't.
Okay. Got show. Namo Amida Butsu.
Butsu.
Namo
Namo
Amida
Amida
Butsu.
Butsu.
Namo
Namo
Amida
Amida
Butsu.
Butsu.
Namanda,
Namo
namanda,
Namanda
namanda,
Butsu. Nama.
Brilliant. I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed this.
Same.
Yes.
Same.
Wonderful.
Really
Wonderful.
wonderful.
Discussion.
Excellent
So thank you.
discussion. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank
All
you,
right.
everyone.
Until next time, this ends this next episode of the Shaku Brothers. Take care.
All right. Take care.